Welcome to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul, two industry veterans who will take you on their exciting adventure building their software company from the ground up. Get ready for cutting-edge tech insights, candid stories, and a whole lot of fun along the way. Welcome to their amazing adventure. Welcome to LaunchCode.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. I'm Paul Schneider. This is my friend and business partner, Mike Dillon. Mike, how are you?
Doing great today. Thank you.
Good. Well, so this is kind of a fun episode because a lot of times we talk about Oracle, we talk about higher ed, sometimes we reminisce. We're going to kind of be doing a little bit of everything in this one, but we also talk about starting a business. And this is kind of fun today because we're kind of incorporating all these into one, right, Mike?
Pretty much. Yeah, we got it. It's from one book to the next, right? We got a lot of subjects to cover.
Great. So we would like to welcome to the show Jenny Rickard, the CEO of Common App. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Paul and Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'll give a little bit of history on this. So Jenny and I are old colleagues. We met back in the mid-90s, seems like ages ago, at Campus Solutions, which was—
It does make us truly old colleagues.
It does. We are officially old. That's sad, but it happened. At the time we were developing the student system for PeopleSoft, and it seems like a long time ago, but our journeys have gone to different places and we've stayed connected. And so I'll start things off and throw out a question to you, Jenny. I guess let's do a little background on Common App, its mission and its impact on the industry.
Sure. Common App is a nonprofit membership association, and our members are colleges and universities worldwide. And we were started nearly 50 years ago by a group of admission deans and college counselors who wanted to streamline the college admission process. And our mission, that's very true to what the origins are, is to promote access, equity, and integrity in the college admission process. And their inspiration was students applying to more colleges outside of their own regions, and it being almost 50 years ago that you had to handwrite or type. And there was this new thing, this new technology, the photocopier. And they thought, hey, could we do something with that? And they had a great idea. And when we think about starting a business, having a great idea and really knowing the business are two key elements. And these volunteers took this idea and ran with it. And it's, obviously it's grown. We started with 15 college and university pilot members, and now we have nearly 1,100 colleges and universities serving 1.5 million applicants every year.
Wow. What was the profile of those early customers?
So the early customers were all private institutions that were trying to recruit nationally. And part of the pilot was getting institutions that were geographically diverse. So they were really coast to coast and in the middle and north and south. And the idea was not only to ease the process for students, but also expose the schools to a more geographically diverse group of students, because they would see the name of the school on the masthead of the document. So that was the advertising that was going on.
That's amazing. It's funny. I've never really asked you that question about how that started, but what a story! What a tremendous success story too, right? I mean,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, one of the things I would say about it is it was that really great idea combined with a mission that the people involved in the college admissions profession really care about college access and student success. And easing the process for students was really fuel for them. And so over the 50 years, we're run by a board that includes admissions people and school counselors, in addition to people from other professions. But they passed the baton as volunteers for years. The first executive director full-time was in 2004, and the organization started in 1975. So it was a labor of love, and continues to be.
Yeah. A lot of volunteers, a lot of
Yeah.
sweat equity to make this work, but
Yes.
what a success. So I guess you've shared a bit about how it's grown.
Yeah.
And dipped into a little bit about technology, but obviously technology has played an increasingly important role in everyone's lives, but particularly with the Common App and the ability for it to grow. So can you tell us a little bit beyond where did we go from the copier to electronics?
Yeah, it's a really cool story. Just thinking about when I think about the origins of the organization, knowing about the photocopier was being technically on it, right? And the next sort of evolution was the floppy disk. So in 1995, the volunteer board members were like, hey, there are these computers and they have these disks. We need to, maybe put this thing on a floppy disk. And they did, and it lived up to its name of floppy disk, right?
So were these 5 1/4 or 3 1/2?
Whatever it was a flop. And then it was, insofar as people didn't really use it, and because the internet, the World Wide Web, came shortly thereafter, and they were also very forward thinking. And in 1998, said, hey, we need to put this thing, on the internet. And they found a vendor to put the form, which was basically the common form. So the thing that all the colleges will use. Colleges can also have supplemental forms, and they didn't have that capacity yet. And recommenders still had to send in things using the photocopier, right? But the students, if they wanted to, could use that online form. And we then evolved in 2006, we changed our vendors to one that did school forms, so the recommender forms, and could also help us with the supplemental forms for the colleges in particular, or for their own needs. And then, you fast forward to around 2010, and the board again, these are, mostly admission practitioners, saying, hey, we are getting more schools signing up. I think at that time, there were probably about 350, 400 schools, and they could see the volume start to go up, broke 1 million applications. And on December 31st, like everybody's applying, so you need to make sure you can scale. And they heard about this cloud thing and thought, okay, well, we should think about a next generation application that will address some of the challenges that some of our college members are having, and the student, make it more a good user experience for students, and go to the cloud. And so that launch of this next generation application in the cloud was in 2013. And another thing that occurred at that time was, given how important technology has been in terms of our ability to access and provide more access to students, and how important that user experience is to us, and how basically kind of the IP, if you will, about what the application is, it comes from our membership. The board at that time of doing the next gen application said, hey, we have some resources now, maybe bring in the technology team from our vendor, and as well as the technology, and run it and own it ourselves, so that we could, the phrase that they used was control our own destiny, which basically meant maybe rolling out some aspects of the application that weren't going to necessarily make a ton of money, but would have a big impact on access and on our mission. And that's one of the benefits, as a nonprofit. If you have a recurring revenue source, you can, we don't have other investors outside of providing value to our membership, and to our students and to the counseling community. And so we were able to, that's sort of how we balance things, is like, not only is what can something that we're doing be financially sustainable and viable, but will it have a big impact? Is it going to provide value to our constituents?
What great insight, if I think about it, I mean, what a wonderful board.
Yeah.
Because that was, if you think 2013, that was still relatively early adoption for the general market, but for higher ed, very early to be thinking about that. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it really, really was. And we use AWS and have a really, it's just a great case study too for why you would want to be in the cloud, because we're able to, scale up on deadline days so that we can handle the what is like over 1,500, students who apply between 11:59 p.m. and 12 midnight, on the last day, with a giant file. So, to make sure that everything goes smoothly, but not having to have it be at that level, every day.
Well, one of the questions that we like to ask, and maybe the board has kind of driven this, for companies that have been around for as long as you have, you clearly have to have a culture. You have to be able to keep people for as long as you have, to grow like you have. What would you say are some of the things that you've done to make it a distinctive culture at Common App?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'd say the big thing goes back to mission and the purpose. It is a huge draw for people, and then us being able to live in that and to know that we're impacting and working with 1.5 million students who are applying to college at this sort of, quote unquote, high stakes process. And then having that empathy, and really internalizing how important that is, not just for the student, but for our own organization and our colleges and universities. It's like it's a lot of responsibility, and I think that mission is a big piece of it. We are now a virtual organization. We did have an office before COVID, and we became virtual. And a big part of that is how do we keep connection and keep sort of cross-functional connection. So the teams all throughout the organization, we rely on each other for everything. Every single piece, works to advance that mission. And being intentional about how we bring the team together is important. So we do 2 all-staff retreats every year. We really try to emphasize work-life balance and making sure people are taking mental health days, and that caring for one another and yourself is as important, as caring for all of our constituents. And I think that's one of the cool things that I've also seen from a cultural perspective, is it's so important for us to listen to the colleges and admissions people as it is the school counselors, as it is to the students, because it's a system that they're all using, and they trying to maximize the experience for everyone, with that ultimate goal of helping as many students as possible, move on to post-secondary opportunity.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place to work. I mean, you're focusing on the students and making sure.
Hey, you're not in an interview here, Paul.
Well, no, I mean, it's like I want to join. This is great. But you also seem like you really focus on the employees too.
Yes.
Talked about the retreats and things like that. For other companies, because again, this is part of what we do, is we're talking about starting a company. How do you keep people? How do you keep them happy? What would you say are some of those common threads for employees that you do that people say, thank you, this makes me feel valued, this makes me feel like you truly care about me as an employee?
Yeah, I think some of the things, like when COVID came, that was a real opportunity to demonstrate how much we care. And we were very intentional about supporting our employees through that period, about creating sort of mental health days and emphasizing the importance of not only the challenges of all of a sudden going fully remote, but the challenges in your life, just living, right? And understanding that. So that was a big piece. We actually, believe it or not, are just going through, we're finishing up an organizational values exercise, because the thing I've often described about my time at Common App, I've been there in this role for 7 years, and I've been on the board back in the 2000s. You know, we had 1.5 employees and we have over 150. And we were in person with 60, and now we have 150 remotely. We have people who never even knew the office. We've hired them since COVID. And so we've been a different organization almost every year that I've been in this role. And we're now doing these organizational values to get the whole org, you know, being able to embrace these values that are going to take us into our next chapter as an organization, because we really are embarking on a new direction. And so having people aligned on the idea that growth, like personal growth, so not just organizational growth, but making sure that we're providing opportunities for our team to grow. And even though we're small with 150 employees and there aren't as many career paths in a smaller organization, it's trying to give people exposure to other areas of growth and being able to see. I think the thing that people appreciate is being able to see the impact that they're having on the effect on the students, right, on the applicants, in addition, obviously, to our membership, but really seeing, wow, look what we were able to do, and I can see my part in that.
That's fantastic. You know, cause and purpose, right? People really feel, you know, a sense of worth and a sense of contribution to society. And I know that Common App, one of the things that you guys are focused on really is widening access. And I know that you know, you're constantly at the forefront. So, you know, if you can share, what are some of the initiatives you have underway that might be widening access?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, definitely. One of the things we got a grant from the Gates Foundation a few years ago to enable us to create a data warehouse, so we could actually take our transaction system and understand who actually is applying, you know, get more visibility into that and be able to provide insights to our membership. And, you know, what you see with 1,100 members, 48 of the public flagships in the United States, you know, 60 schools outside of the United States, that still, despite the diversity of our membership, 70% of the applicants come from above the national median income. And it becomes even more striking when you see that 55% of the applicants are in the top income quintile. And so low and middle income students, which is something that we hear about not being in four-year markets, colleges, is true. And it's something that has been a systemic issue for the country. And so one of the things that we're doing is how we started was, how do we remove barriers, you know, for students in this process? And so one of the barriers was, oh my gosh, I have to type or handwrite this application and then put it in the mail and do this thing, you know, so that was the first barrier. But there are also psychological barriers, social barriers that would prevent a student from even thinking that they might be able to apply. And so a couple things that we've done. Back in 2019, we joined forces with Michelle Obama's Reach Higher campaign. That it was her college access and success campaign that she developed during her time in the White House. And it's about creating a college-going culture and providing inspiration to students who might not think that they belong in college, to let them know, yes, you absolutely belong there and deserve to be there. So that's one thing. Another is with 1,100 colleges and universities as in our membership, the vast majority of them admit the majority of their applicants. But when you read in the paper, you read that nobody gets into college, right? You're just going to get rejected, because if the press, you know, everybody focuses on a handful of hyper selective, you know, institutions, you know, the Ivies and others, but there's so many great options, you know, that admit most of the applicants and are really good schools. So we are working with our membership to do something called direct admission, which is to try to take the fear of applying away from a student by, before they even submit an application, if they've given us enough information about their academic background, and they are low or middle income based on the data that we have, or first generation college, we will send on behalf of a school an offer of admission that says, hey, based on your information that you've provided, you will be admitted. All you need to do is, these few things, and submit the application, and you'll have an offer of admission. So it's to provide students with more confidence, going through the process. And the students that have been most impacted are underrepresented students, first generation, low income students who really pursued those opportunities. And given our scale this year, with 70 of our institutions participating, which we did this after 3 years of pilots to make sure that we could get the process going. 400,000 low and middle income students were given proactive offers of admission. And so that was just the first year of scaling it. And I'm really, really excited about how we help demystify the process and give students more agency and confidence. And our qualitative research with students have said it's really made a difference. And the quantitative research we have says that students who did take advantage of it and applied were more likely to apply to another school, which is one of the things that in this process, that as students kind of expand, not overexpand their applications, but if they don't limit their choices, they're more likely to go on to college. So that's one of the things that we're doing, which I'm really, really excited about. The big frontier is affordability, and how do we provide more transparency up front to applicants so that they can make informed decisions about what college costs are, because that's the biggest barrier, is financial, right? So we're trying to reduce the barriers in our wheelhouse, if you will, and are looking to figure out how we partner with other organizations, and then also how we branch into new markets, such as two-year colleges and community colleges, who would need a different kind of process than what we have for four-year colleges. But if we can provide students with a full view of the continuum of the great strength of our system in the United States is the diversity of our institutions, right? And providing students with a look at that then could also make a four-year education, with a two-year to four-year transfer, that much more affordable. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
Fantastic. Hey, so we spoke a bit about purpose and culture, and we talked about inclusion and trying to widen access. I'll just throw out one additional question on internally. Obviously a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. Do you do anything special as a company to help ensure that people are learning about blind spots or other types of ways, just to make sure that the environment is healthy for everybody?
So within the organization, for our employees, So couple things. One is we actually are hiring our first vice president for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so that process is going on right now. And that was after a few years of doing some surveys, like employee climate surveys, to get some insights into where there are blind spots. And how do we make sure that from a hiring perspective, we're making sure we're getting a great diversity of applicants, and not being blind, if you will, to the talents of people that might not seem, like they're the same talents as others. So that's a big piece of what we're doing. And we're looking to have the programming with the VP for DEIB more systematic. We've been working with an outside consultant right now to help us identify some of those blind spots, and based on the surveys have created some workshops in like microaggressions and other areas, so that we all can see the blind spots that we all have, the unconscious bias And so really having that be more systematic is going to be the charge for our new DEIB person. But yeah, that's, I think for us with a mission that's all about access and equity and inclusion, if we're not living that within the organization, we're not going to live it outside of the organization, and it won't be reflected. A couple of years ago, just to get a sense of how we've incorporated it externally, is there's data, there's a lot of research that shows that underrepresented students, Black students in particular, tend to get a school disciplinary infraction. They're more likely to get that than a white student or even other students, even for the same incident. They might be suspended and another student might not be. So a Black student is 4 times more likely than a white student. And so but we had a school discipline question on the common portion of the application. So we took a look at our own data, thanks to that grant from the Gates Foundation, and could see that if a student had indicated that they were Black and had a disciplinary infraction, they were half as likely to complete their application as another student, and that they were more likely to have an infraction than another student. To compound it, we would let schools report school discipline, and half of the high schools wouldn't report it. They'd say, we don't report this information. Well, guess what schools reported the information? It was schools that had larger proportions of Black and Latinx students who would send that information in. And so there were these disadvantages for students on multiple levels. And so we, as a membership organization, we had members, colleges that wanted us to keep it on the common portion of the application. But once we got that data, we said, we're not going to have it on the common portion anymore. You can ask it in your institutional area. But from the data that we have, we think that is providing, it's a disadvantage to certain groups of students.
Right?
An inherent bias. So we, so that's the kind of thing that we've been working on, and that's what we are working on internally too. The kinds of things that would have people feeling marginalized.
Well, so I think one of the interesting things is how we met, and oh my, what a journey that was, right? So we can probably just mention that we've been through startups before, but that Campus Solutions was something else, because we had no idea where that was going to go when we started, and I'd love to hear your reflections or memories of just what it was like those very early days, because Paul and I are living through that right now.
Yeah.
Well, we were a startup kind of before there were a lot of startups.
Yeah.
So I just remember how I was working at a software company as an implementation consultant, and I was traveling all the time. And I happened to look at my email on a listserv, and the headline said, "Are you one of us?" And it was about PeopleSoft entering the student administration market. And that's where I was at a competitor. And I thought, wow, if PeopleSoft gets into that, then that's going to be amazing. And I wrote back. And I think, Mike, you might have been the one that sent it out or something.
It could have been.
Or Jeff Collier did,
Yeah.
but there was something about you in there. And I responded, and then I had an interview with our colleagues, Jeff and Liz, at Dulles Airport at a hotel, because I was living in Fairfax, Virginia at the time. I never went to go to the office. I never went out there. So these are sort of the things you learn over the years. I didn't go see the offices. And so I show up on my first day and the door's locked, right? So then I ring the doorbell, and there aren't that many people who work there. And one of our colleagues came out and said, "Who are you?" So I'm Jenny Rickard, and I'm starting today. And he said, "Okay, I'll be right back." And he closed the door. And I'm standing out there.
Let me go verify.
I was like, what have I done?
And
Oh
we
my
have to
God.
preface this, like, PeopleSoft was taken off, right? They had beautiful offices at that time, Walnut Creek before Pleasanton. Gorgeous offices, wonderful. This was not the case for the Campus Solutions team down in Southern California. We were in the Valley in a very dumpy office building. Like, I could imagine Jenny's thinking, what did I get myself into? And are these people really a part of PeopleSoft? Yeah.
They say I have an email address. It's PeopleSoft. I don't know. But then that's how I met Mike, and Mike and I were on the same team. You know, we reported to the partner in charge of admissions and campus community. And Mike had gotten there ahead of me, so he knew all sorts of stuff. And I had said in my interview, they asked me how technical I was, and I said, well, no one ever said, oh, Jenny, she's so technical. I said, no one ever said that. And they still hired me. And then they said, oh, you can do this. We'll just send you to go to People Tools. And I'm like, okay. So it was a lot of learning.
Nobody told us that we would have to code.
No one told us that. And what was your major in college again, Mike?
Oh, it was history.
Yeah, it was political science.
Yeah. I mean, I did eventually get an MA in higher ed administration after dropping out of a PhD program in French history. So yeah, I had all the qualifications.
Yeah, so we were similarly qualified. Yeah,
that's right. Well, like working in that
Yeah.
industry, working for Campus Solutions, then PeopleSoft became this juggernaut in higher education. Like, what was and the names, the people that started there really became, drivers in higher ed and PeopleSoft and all, maybe even into Oracle. What was it like? Did you know what you were doing back then? What you were starting when you started at Campus Solutions? What it was going to become?
well, I think for me, one of my drivers was having worked in college admissions and like this goal that I'd had when I was graduating from college to help more people go to college. And I thought I should work in admissions to do that. And I couldn't get a job in admissions. So I worked at a bank and went to business school, but then I worked in admissions and I worked in systems, and I could see like people didn't really think about the data as much back then. And then I worked at that other company. And I thought, wow, these systems, they could be different. And then with PeopleSoft, I was like, if they enter this market, they will really be a leader in that market. And think about if we could create a system that would support colleges and universities expanding their outreach and reaching more students. That's a way to fulfill that goal that I had. And it was. So I thought this would be big. And our beta partners were certainly big time, like Cornell and JMU, SMU, Cal State LA, University of Michigan, Houston Community College. I mean, it was a really, really incredible group of schools to learn from. And so just seeing that they were buying into it was a huge vote of confidence for it. And the fact that then so many other schools signed on and went live, and it was very strong adoption. But I do remember one of my colleagues, one of the first 10 employees at PeopleSoft was our advisor about developing this product. And I remember her saying, Jenny, if you don't get something in now, it's going to be a lot harder to get it in later.
Right.
And which just added a lot of like, oh my God. But it was intense and great. And but I know both Mike and I learned a lot.
And I was talking about recreating. I'll never forget when they decided, hey, you know what? Multiple institutions may want to be in the software at the same time. It took us about, and we were lucky we're at the very beginning because it only took us about 6 months to redo
everything.
Yeah. But if we had been 2 years or 3 years down the line, it would have been nearly impossible to do that.
But there were funny things like the fact that the ID, I just remember this, that like this person's ID was EMPL ID, right? Yeah. Which is employee ID.
Yeah.
Right. And so anybody in a college is like, well, it's not an employee, it's a student. Why is this EMPL ID? And so there are little things like that you had to had to deal with.
So your career journey was fantastic. You did so many different interesting things afterwards. Could you share a little bit about what it was like after Campus Solutions?
After Campus Solutions, yeah. So after Campus Solutions, I wanted to go back and work in admissions. Doing the coding thing had been a heavy lift.
It wasn't a career path.
So once we released the beta and I felt I had done my part, I moved back to Philadelphia and was working at my alma mater again, Swarthmore College. And then I got a call from our friend Liz, because PeopleSoft had acquired Campus Solutions now, and she was going to lead product strategy, which was then the place where you could really think about, the future of admissions and how to support people. And so I had a great opportunity to work for Liz and work at PeopleSoft in a non-coding environment. And then also just work from Philadelphia. So I worked remotely in 1998 to 2002, and it was not a problem. It wasn't even a question at PeopleSoft, interestingly enough. And then 9/11 happened, and I was traveling a ton because I was living in Philadelphia, going to Pleasanton and other places. And I had this opportunity to go be a dean of admissions and financial aid at Bryn Mawr College near me in Philadelphia. And like the sister college to Swarthmore, or sibling college. And I was able to then go, I went from changing a system, if you will, like a literal system, to then going to an institution to see what are the kinds of things we could change within our institutional system that could help more students that we're not currently serving get into the Bryn Mawr applicant pool and be able to afford it and be able to graduate. And so that was a great experience. And while doing that, I was on the board of the Common App because they needed somebody who had technology background, and I was a unicorn who had that background. And I met every online application vendor, working at PeopleSoft. So I had a good lens of that. And I had another enrollment leader position at University of Puget Sound, which was a wonderful experience at a great school, being able to see a different market for liberal arts colleges. And then Common App had this opportunity arise, and I was on the board again. They'd asked me to come back on the board. And so I didn't know this opportunity would arise. And then when I was reading the job description, someone nominated me, and then I was like, they said, send a cover letter. And then I wrote the cover letter, and it's like, yeah, so this has been my career. Unbeknownst to me, this is the career path that I followed. And now I have this job that has all the pieces of the work that I did, and the great fortune of having that mission that I really care about. So it's been really fortunate. And when I talk to students, about, well, what do I need to do to get there? It's like, well, what is it that you really care about? And what is it that you want to accomplish? Because I cared about college access the whole time I was at PeopleSoft. And the whole time I was at JP Morgan, and so I did different things along the way, like alumni interviews or volunteering for a CBO. But yeah, so it's just like if you sort of keep that purpose going, things you find ways to relate that purpose, to what you're doing.
Yeah, you had the North Star.
The North Star, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
fantastic. Hey, so if you were going to give words of wisdom to a student applying for college, what would you do? And particularly for somebody maybe fearful or a first generation student, what are the key nuggets that you would impart? Yeah,
a couple key nuggets. One is that the vast majority of colleges admit most students, and you, as a high school graduate, can go to college. You can get into college. So take that worry off your mind, and do some research, like just sort of look around, think about what it is that you like and want to do. A lot of people or maybe no one, if you're a first generation college, people might not be giving you any ideas about where you might go. They might be saying, oh, you can't do it. just know that you can, and listen to your North Star, that you want to go do that. Keep an open mind about schools. People might say, well, that's not the right school for you, or that's not a good school, or all sorts of things. But you need to do your own evaluation of that. And I would say don't worry. It's going to be okay. So that's number one thing. It's going to be okay. Is think about what you like, where you want to be, what you want to study, and listen to yourself. A lot of people will tell you what they might want to do, but if you know what you want to do, and sometimes you don't know what you want to do, but that means there are plenty of schools where you can go and you don't need to know what you're going to do, but you want to have opportunities, and you know that going to college is going to give you a lot more opportunities than if you don't. So don't let the rhetoric that you also hear out there that college isn't worth it get to you, because there's so much research that shows college is worth it, not only for your financial health, but for your emotional and physical health. That college graduates tend to live longer, earn more, and feel better about their futures. So don't be afraid. Follow your gut, trust your gut, and you're going to be great.
That is fantastic advice. Thank you very much. This was an awesome discussion. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today. This is great. I love hearing the story about how you guys had met and just all the great things going on at Common App. To all our listeners, you can watch this and every episode on our website at elastiforce.com, or if you just want to listen to it, you can listen on Apple or Spotify. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
You have been listening to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. You can find all episodes on your favorite podcast services and on our website at elastiforce.com. In addition, if you have software development or Oracle or PeopleSoft managed service needs, visit us at elastiforce.com and let's see how we can help.